Alrighty, tidy, we are back and let's talk at actually using the trig function. So in the last video, in the last week we looked at labeling, and it's really, really important. You might think, God, why is she making me label all these triangles? But if the labeling's wrong and you get the wrong side labeled, then the whole thing falls over. Okay, so let's have a look at this. We're going to look at three trigonometric functions. Okay, there's sine, right? Cosine and tangent. Okay, now have a look at the three letters at the front. The S-I-N, it's not pronounced sin, it's pronounced sine. Sine, cos, and tan. If you have a look at your scientific calculator right now, got it? Got it? Sure you got it? Okay, if you have a look in some of the buttons, you'll see those three, sin, cos, and tan, sine, cos, and tan, sitting in a row on your calculator. And that's why you need to have you can't do this without a calculator. All right, so sine, cos, and tan, we're going to be using those buttons. All right, so let's have a look at sine first. You do actually pronounce it S-I-G-N, like sine. Yeah, it's not any other pronunciation. Cosine, pretty obvious, you can hear from my delightful accent. And tangent, all right, just so you know how it's pronounced. Now, often when we're dealing with angles, we label the angle this funny thing here. Now, this is the Greek letter theta. Sometimes you hear Americans call it theta, but no, we pronounce it theta, okay? And it basically is an unknown angle or a marked angle. Okay, so let's have a look at the ratio. First of all, if you are using sine theta, then you are going to use the ratio or the fraction of the opposite side, that one there, over the hypotenuse. Okay, so when you have the opposite and the hypotenuse together, you're going to use sine. And when you have cosine, you'll see that it uses different sides. So that is equal to the adjacent side. So there it is down there. And the hypotenuse, there she is up there. Okay. Now, if you think about it, there's one set of sides as a combination missing. And that, of course, is the opposite and the adjacent. So there's the opposite side, and here is the adjacent side. So when you get those two together, you use tan. All right, now the way you remember this is this little mnemonic down the bottom, which you might have heard if you've got older brothers or sisters talking about, and it's pronounced so, ka, and toa. Right, so, ka, toa. And if you have a look, it says sine with opposite and hypotenuse, sine with opposite and hypotenuse. Cosine goes with adjacent and hypotenuse, there it is. And tan goes with opposite and adjacent. And it's very important that you actually learn these ratios off by heart. So, ka, toa makes it easier. If you notice the middle one in each piece, okay, the middle one here is actually the top of each fraction. Can you see that? So the top of each fraction actually appears in the middle. So it's sine, opposite over hypotenuse, so, ka, and toa. All right, so it sort of goes up in the middle. All right. Okay, so using trig on the calculator, let's just do a bit of a crash course. All angles have have different sine, cosine, and tangent ratios. In other words, different numbers come up, right? So scientific calculators, well, they actually store all this information and you just need to be able to access it. Now, if you're talking to grandma and grandpa, depending on how old they are, they probably are going to talk about a trig table. All right, so anybody who's older than about 60 probably used what's called a trig table and they won't have liked it. You're very lucky your calculator works for you. So let's work on finding the ratios here. All right, the simplest form of question is finding a decimal value of the ratio. Just remember when I say ratio, I mean fraction for a given angle. So here we go. If we want sine of 32, all you're going to do on your calculator is press sine and press 32 and press equals, and you should get this number here. Now, I'd like you to do that on your calculator, because if it doesn't come up with this answer, I'm going to need you to change its mode. So go to the mode button on your calculator and change it to degrees, because it's probably on a thing called rad. So you need to make sure that your calculator has a little D or a DEG up the top. That's what you want for degrees. If it says R or RAD, rad, that is bad. You don't want that. So change it to degrees, and that is done via the mode button. Okay, so look for the mode button. If you have trouble, I'll give you some help. Okay, all right, and you always want your calculator to be in degrees. Now, once you do that, so you just hit sine 32 equals 0.514. Okay, so sine of the angle equals that number, or as a decimal. Okay. Now, we've just found out that it holds all the information for sine, cos, and tan for all the angles. It can also be used in reverse to find an angle. Okay, now to do this, you notice that there's a -1 on the sine, the cosine, and the tan here. That means you're going to have to press shift on your calculator. For those people with an alpha, not an alpha, what am I talking about? With a sharp calculator, just check it. May be the alpha, that blue button you need to press, but we'll check it out in the morning. Okay, let's have an example of that. If I have sine of x equals this number, I've got to find angle x. So what I do is I press sine -1, which is often shift sign, and I put the number in, I press equals, and that will tell me that the angle is 6.4. Okay, you don't need to worry about this line of working, and you don't really need to worry about this line of working. This one's just to show you how to shove it in your calculator. This one's a line you don't need, but that will tell you that the original angle is 6.4 degrees. Cool. All right, let's try it for this one. Cosine of x equals 0.8988. Okay, we're going to find the original angle. So again, cos -1, put the number in, press equals. Now remember that shift cos. So whenever you're finding an angle, you're going to press shift cos, and you should get 26 degrees. Got it? Awesome.